Hi everybody. On this video I want to talk about some specific skills that we need to build a circuit, specifically in the lab, the residential labs. I also want to talk about order of operations, so there's a little bit of my math teacher coming out in me using those terms. But we've talked about some of this. I just want to highlight some points and repeat some of the things I've already said. I'm talking now to a number of different classes, so for some of you guys, You've already had a chance to build a couple of labs. For some of you guys, you haven't even been in there yet with the tools very much. So for some of you, this is an opportunity to learn before you have the chance to actually work on it. But for many of you, this is a point to review what you've done, compare your work to my work, and get an idea of where you're at and where you need to get to. Okay. One of the things my dad always said was that, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And so it doesn't matter how many times you do it, if you don't have a good understanding of what it is you're trying to get to in terms of those skills, you're never going to get there. Okay, so I've had this conversation with many of you one-on-one, but I just want to make sure everybody gets the message, everybody gets a chance to be part of the conversation and hear those things that I've been saying, so that you know what you're aiming for, what you're striving for. Okay. The fact of the matter is these skills are just about practice, right? Doing it over and over and over again. So you're not going to go in there and do it perfect the first time, all right? I've done this many, many times, and sometimes my work's not perfect. I'll get something finished, and I'll look at it, and I'll say, oh, that's just not going to do. Let's try again, okay? So it's never going to be perfect in the beginning, and it's never going to be perfect all the time. But if we can have the conversation and everybody can get the understanding of what we're striving for, then we can do exactly that. We can strive for it. Okay, so let me see. I've got some notes here I'm going to try to stick to so this doesn't go off on giant tangents and last for hours. Points I want to highlight. I think let's start with the order of operations. So let's talk about the rough-in, okay, and the steps involved. So first thing we need to do is mount the boxes on the wall, right? Pick our spots, measure it, mount it, whatever the case may be. Okay, that's step one. Get all the boxes in all the right places. Okay. Second step is to get all the wires in all the right places. So I talked about this in video 2, the rough-in video. I said that, when I'm doing my rough-in, I go as fast as I can through the entire house or around the room or whatever it is I'm doing, and try to figure out, what wires have to go where and get them there before I lose my train of thought. So for those of you who had a couple of weeks now in the lab, you've seen the labs are going to get progressively more difficult, but even in the beginning, you've really got to put some thought into, what wires go where. So let's get that done quickly. Okay. And then the next 3 points, I've got a couple of orders of operation. I'm trying to decide if I want to write these down. I suppose I do. Okay. So step 1, mount the boxes. Step 2, pull wire. We use the term pull wire because typically we're pulling it through holes in the studs. Okay, and then of course securing it with staples and whatnot. And then we split off onto 2 parts, okay, depending on how you wish to do it. So the way I've taught it, the way I've told you that I prefer to do it, okay, we pull the wires into the boxes. So wire in box, right, get the wire inside the box. And then we need to secure the wire and then strip the wire. I've noticed a number of students who have been trying to strip the wire before they've tightened down on it inside the box, okay? And that's really causing you a lot of grief, okay? The whole point, my argument of putting the wire inside the box before I strip it is so the box can hold the wire, okay? So if you're not securing the wire before you strip the wire, you're kind of completely defeating that purpose, all right? And making your life more difficult. And a lot of this conversation is about doing things that feel comfortable. Making your life easier, not harder, okay? So if you're not going to secure the wire before you strip the wire, then you probably might as well just strip the wire before you put it in the box. So this is the other way, and the majority of electricians, I would say, probably more than half, okay? I really believe I'm in the minority. Most of them prefer to do it this way. First thing they're going to do is strip the wire. And I've had my class yesterday, I had them doing it this way. I asked them to try it the other way, and a number of them, commented that this is a real problem because I don't know how long to strip the wire, and that's my argument. Okay, you can't make a beautiful job because you never quite get this right. Okay, strip the wire, and then you put the wire in the box. Wire in box, and then you can secure it. Okay, so whichever way you choose to do that particular part of it, it doesn't much matter. We end up in the same place. Now let me walk you through this. The only tool we're going to need for this at this point is our red Roughin. Okay, I've got a brand new octagon box here. I'm going to try to get this right up tight to the camera for you guys so you can see what I'm doing. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this snap out, this knockout out. Okay, and then I've already got a piece of stripped wire, so I'm doing it the hard way. And this is the part that I argue is difficult. If you strip the wire first, instead of having one bundle to deal with, you've got 3 separate wires that you need to make sure all end up in the same place. So we've got to try to get that. This is a little bit of a struggle for me floating in midair. Make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. So when we do this, okay, this strap, when we tighten it down, has to be on the outer jacket. So we don't want a whole ton of the outer jacket inside the box. It just gets in our way. Okay, but we cannot clamp onto the wires with it outside the box like that. So we want the outer jacket to just appear inside the box, right about there. And then we can tighten down on it. Okay. So there we go. We now, and again, the conversation about how tight is tight. Okay, don't get it really super tight, but this is still wiggling in there, right? So that's not secure. Okay, so we have to secure the wire, whatever the definition of secure is. What I'm doing here, it feels like it's getting tighter, but I'm actually bending the clamp. This little tab on the clamp is flexing. And that's the reason I feel resistance as I'm tightening it, but I've still got a little bit of wiggle in the wire, so I'm not quite there. So a little bit more. Okay, and now I'm done. I felt right there at the end, I felt extra resistance. So I now know that I'm not just flexing this tab on the clamp, I'm actually now grabbing onto the wire, and that is now secure, so I'm done. Okay, so there we go. We've got, the wire is inside the box, the wire is secure, and the wire is stripped. Okay, so we got through that part of it there. Okay, the next step, and this is where I have found some guys, they're kind of all over the map, okay? They're trying to decide what to do with wires. They're putting morettes on wires, okay? They still haven't stripped all the wires. They certainly haven't secured them inside the box. It's really important that you go through and you do all of that in the right order. Get all the wires in the box, make sure they're all secured. Now you can move on to the next step. Well, the next step, we're still not trying to figure out how the circuit is going to work. Okay, we had to figure that out to get the right wires in the right place. But now we're just focusing on dealing with the stuff that's inside the box. So the next thing we have to do is bond wire on ground screw. That's a C, ground screw. All right, so this is the next item that's been a bit of a struggle, okay? So, let me see. Where do I want to start this conversation? I need to skip ahead a little bit, okay? And when we talk about order of operation, when we finally get to the point where we're making our connections, okay, we make our connections in a specific order, okay? It's always the ground wire or the bond wire first, okay? That's our safety net. So it's got to be put in place first, okay? And then the white wire next, because that's what completes the circuit. And then we finish by providing the hot wire with its connection, okay? So bare wire, white wire, black wire, that's the order that we make the connections. I talked about this when I talked about the video about how to deal with the panel, okay? I didn't really relate it back to just a device box, but the same thing is true here, okay? We want to layer our wires, okay? The bond wire goes to the back, we make the connections first, we get it out of our way. And then the white wires and then the black wires can be on the top. There's another good reason for it here, and this is where I want to go with this conversation, is that recognize when I put my keyless fixture on here, there are open terminals that are going to be live in the back of that fixture. if my bare copper wire ends up at the top of the box, right here in the middle, it's going to come in contact with those live terminals and we're going to have a ground fault. Okay, so we have to make sure that doesn't happen. So it's really, really important that this bare copper wire ends up at the very back of our box, not in danger of coming in contact with any live parts. Okay, so I'm going to do this just for the purpose of demonstration. So I've seen a number of times where people have decided, well, I want to, get towards that ground screw, and they've done something like that. Okay, so I have two issues. First of all, I've said get this to the ground screw as fast as possible. The other thing I don't like is the fact that even if you pull this tight to get there as fast as possible, you see how I've wrapped it around the top of those other wires. Okay, well that's not layering the box. That's exactly what I'm talking about when I say layer the box. I need that bond wire. And I say need very strongly because this is probably my greatest pet peeve. This is really important for me. Okay, don't cross the wires. Because when you cross the wires, you make a mess and the mess can't be cleaned up. Okay, if the wires are not crossed, we can deal with just about anything. Okay, so the first thing I want to do when it comes time to land the bond wire is I want to get these wires pulled back so that I know that the bond wire is going to be at the back. Okay, so as soon as it enters the box, I'm getting them untangled, and now I'm going to take that and I'm going to turn it towards that bond screw. Okay, so now when these come back down, they're going to end up on top of that bare copper wire. Okay, now next thing, and this is where I really hope you can see, this is going to be a bit of a struggle, because this has kind of been a struggle with the conversation all along. There's a contour. I'm going to remove this screw entirely. So if I take this one out, I hope you can see that in the back of that box, there's a contour in the back of the box. It's not flat. Okay? There are a couple of ridges here, and they're running in this direction. Okay? So I want that wire, if I were to aim it over there, I want that wire to be parallel to those ridges. Okay? So the wire sits right in there. We cannot have that wire go across those ridges perpendicular and make an H. Okay? Because that's going to create a pinch point. Okay, let me draw this. The contour comes up and goes down and across and comes up and goes down, and the screw goes there. The wire can't go through here. The wire has to end up sitting right in there. Then we can grab the wire without any danger of pinching it. Okay? I'm going to pinch this wire just to show you what it looks like. Put the screw back in. Feels like it's cross-threaded. There we go. I'm going to put the wire in across the groove like that. Okay. Let me get right up in here. Let me see. Can we do this? Hopefully this is going to work. So that's across. The grooves are running. The grooves are running this way. I'm going to put this across the groove. I'm going to tighten down on it. And what I hope to do, I don't know if this is going to work for me. I have a picture. I took a picture of one student's lab yesterday, and he had this. I'm going to post it for everybody. You know who you are. Sorry, I won't. I'll leave you anonymous. And what happens, let me just crank on this. I gotta. There. Let's see if that does the trick. Now when I back this off and we look at the wire, can we see the wire is damaged? And I didn't do too bad a job, actually. The picture I'm going to give you shows how badly you can kink that wire. And then when you give it an extra pinch, it just breaks off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. Sorry, I can't do this backwards. I apologize. And I'm going to put that wire like that. Okay? So now the wire goes up through in the same angle as that groove. Can you see that? We've got glare going on. I don't know. I can't decide if you can see it or not. Hopefully you can. Okay, and now I'm going to tighten this down. And I'm working blind, hoping that it's in the right angle for you. And that wire is now sitting in there inside that groove. Okay? I hope that worked. Stressed over that quite a bit. It's kind of an important thing, okay? Especially when you see the picture that I post and realize the damage that you can do to the wire when you put it across the groove instead of into the groove, okay? The groove grabs hold of it, makes it secure, but doesn't create a pinch point, okay? All right, talked about that enough. Let's move on. What have we got next? Once we've bonded the wire, now we can cut our wires to length. Here's another thing I saw students doing yesterday, getting in a bit of a hurry to cut their wires to length. Okay, well, if we cut these wires to length and then landed this bond wire under the ground screw, it is now taken a detour and it would end up being considerably shorter. You can see, I hope, yeah, you can see that, how much shorter the bond screw ends up as a result of this detour. Okay, so we want to have this extra length while we're busy doing that. Okay, at this point, everything is secure. Okay, nothing's moving anymore. We don't have to worry about needing more wire. Okay, we've kept the extra up until this point. Now, I will use the shortest wire as my reference, and I will cut the other wires to match. And now all of my wires are the same length. Okay? This is another thing, conversation about making your life easier as opposed to making your life harder. If your tails are way too short, okay, you really struggle to get whatever device, the light fixture here or a plug or a switch, getting the device hooked up is a real problem if your tails are too short. Okay? Some people have learned that lesson the hard way. Also, if your wires are different lengths, it becomes a real challenge as well. Really, really hard, unnecessarily difficult. If all of your wires are the same length, code requires a minimum of 6 inches. I would say I've got closer to 8. This is lovely. Okay, I really wouldn't want any less than this. This is a good length. Makes your life easy. Okay? And then finally, the one last thing you want to do, back to my red Robbie screwdriver one last time, we've got a couple of screws here that we haven't used. Okay, this strap in particular, okay, there's a couple of issues here. First of all, if this were to vibrate and work its way loose, we would have loose floating parts inside here with live parts. Okay, we certainly don't want that. But also, we probably want this space in the box when it comes time to put the device inside the box. And so we're going to go around and all of the unused screws, those screws that we didn't touch, we are just going to tighten them up. And they don't have to be super tight, okay? But I don't want that clamp bouncing around in there, and I want that extra space. And the ground screw that we didn't use, we want to snug it up as well. Okay, it gives us more space inside the box. Okay, and that's the conclusion of the Roughin. At this point, you can call me over and say, can you sign off on my Roughin? I'll do my inspection, and I'll either say looks good or here's a couple of adjustments for you. Okay, that gets you through the Roughin. So the only last note here would be tighten unused screws. Okay. I don't know how long my video is getting. I do want to carry on. That's close to 20 minutes. Let's carry on with the trim out portion of it. While we're talking about skills and while we're talking about making connections and whatnot, let's finish that thought. We're done with the red Robbie screwdriver. It's time to grab the green Robbie screwdriver to make our connections on our devices. Okay, so I've tried to make some examples of the sorts of mistakes that I've seen. So we want to strip the wire. Well, let me have this conversation first. Let me grab a piece of wire here. Okay, if you are using the correct size hole in your wire strippers, you can just pinch the wire, okay, cut the insulation, we're good, and by grabbing the wire and pushing on the pliers with your thumb, that should just slide right off, okay? There should be no need for any of this action, okay? Because all you're doing is damaging the conductor. Look at when I pull that off. Okay, that conductor is now very badly scarred as a result of that activity, okay? So use the right hole, snip, grab the wire with your hand, push the pliers away from the wire with your thumb, and of course this time, because I'm trying to do it slowly, it's a little bit more difficult, but it really should just pop the wire, the insulation free of the wire fairly effortlessly, okay? I don't want to see anybody cranking on it because you're damaging the wire, okay? As soon as you go to spin it, oh, let's talk about that skill. As soon as you go to spin it, you're probably going to break it. So we've got holes in the handles of our pliers. Put the wire in so it's just a little bit through. I usually use my finger to kind of hold it in place. And then we spin it. Now, if you just turn the pliers, you end up with a very large loop like that. That's not going to fit underneath the screw. What you need to do is, as you're spinning, see that catch? As you're spinning, you need to be pulling on it. So keep it tight and turn it, and you get a really nice little turn. Okay? Some examples of the things I saw yesterday. Okay, here we go. Let's hope you can see these. So see this, this first example, they stripped way too much wire, and so there's a very long piece here. Okay, this is now a live wire that is free to come in contact with something else on the side of the box. Okay, likewise here, this one, the loop wasn't tight enough, and so this is floating. Once again, a live wire potentially ready to come in contact with the side of the box. Okay, a couple more examples of stuff that I did not like to see. Clearly, this is stripped way too far back. Okay, and this one's not stripped back far enough. How are we doing here? Yeah, we're right in there. So in this case, the screw is actually touching the insulation, holding the screw from getting tight. We're not sure if it's touching the actual copper at all. Hopefully it's making contact. It's definitely not making good contact. That's going to be a hot spot down the road. With just limited contact, that's going to generate a lot of resistance, generate a lot of heat. Okay, this, once again, in danger of coming in contact with some other part of the box, the side of the box, creating a ground fault probably. Okay, not appropriate. Here's what I'm looking for. Okay, see how the insulation is up tight to the screw? It's not necessarily wedged underneath the screw, but it's right up tight to it. So that's the kind of thing that we're looking for in our connections. Okay, everybody get a chance to see that. Let me just glance over here. Yeah, I think probably that's pretty good. Excellent. Okay, guys, so that's a conversation about skills. Those are the kinds of things that we're looking at doing each and every week. Okay, aside from the actual project, okay, what it is we're building, lights, switches, plugs. Okay, those are the kinds of skills and those are the kinds of procedures that are in place all the time. Okay, that's the repetitiveness. Every single time you come into the lab, those are the kinds of things that you're going to be doing, no matter what the circuit is you're actually building. Okay, I'm going to shut it down there. That's long enough for this video. I will come back with another video to talk about what's going to happen next time we're in the lab.